My parents went down to work with the Seris in 1951 and took me to Desemboki when I was 3 months old. My father had just built a small adobe house there, and it was paradise. It was a wonderful place to grow up. The shore, the sand dunes, the people, and I learned Seri as a child. And the thing that makes it special is that the desert comes down and really meets the sea. You have cardone cactuses in the sand dunes, and there's the ocean. And so it's an incredible, interesting landscape that you get, a juxtaposition of those two. I loved the seashore as a kid, and I loved shells. And so I had a small shell collection, and my father, who wrote Seri, and I really didn't know how to write it at that point, sat down with me with a consultant of his and about 12 different shells, and he wrote down the names. And that was my first foray into the actual world of shells as connected to the Seris. So then after that, I took a notebook and I started 1 page per shell, and I started doing a drawing of a shell. And I got to about 68 pages, and I had to turn around, and so I started going back through it, and in the back of each page, putting another shell there. And then I realized, whoa, they know a whole lot more than I thought they knew. Then, as it developed, I began to realize that their information was important, because the whole Gulf of California, most of the people that lived around there, the languages are extinct. And here are the Seri with this vibrant culture still, and knowledge that was still around, and their language that they still spoke in the home and the kids knew. So it's like, to me, it's like a picture of the whole Gulf, of what it used to be. So I started realizing that it was important. And then the more I wrote, the more I realized I needed to know. It's amazing, they love telling you things. And maybe it's because I loved hearing it and I spoke the language and I understood. So sometimes I'd sit down with a group of women, and I kind of wanted to know something about one of the shells. And so I would throw out a question, and they'd all start talking at once, because that's the way they converse. And then I'd get these little tidbits of information that I could act on later and talk to one of those people in a more formal way. It was just fun. The whole thing was fun. Now when I go back, quite a few of my consultants are no longer there. And their knowledge is gone, except for what they've passed on. Now the kids hardly know any of these names of these shells, because they've got television and the internet, and they don't spend their time down at the beach like kids when I was growing up. There's just something really missing, and it's going to be lost. This is different in that I wasn't an outsider going in and saying, tell me everything you know about shells or whatever. You couldn't do that. This is something that I got through the years of just writing it down and recording it and putting it in a notebook, and it just grew. And so it reaches deep into their culture. It reaches deep into how they thought of their world. It's a picture of how they thought of their world.